Just file for divorce. I don't want the kids." With those harsh words, my husband left the house, abandoning our 3-year-old twins and our newborn daughter. I had suspected he was cheating for some time, but between childcare and work, I had no energy to confront him. "I can't do this anymore." Just then, one of the twins clung to me, saying, "Mommy, we love you." Their worried faces looked up at me. Despite my anger towards my husband, something snapped in me at that moment. Well, I'll just file it, I thought. I signed the divorce papers with a smirk. He doesn't realize how much I've been supporting him. Unknowingly, he had begun his descent into hell. "I'll be home late again." How many times have I heard that? My name is Iris. I'm 34. We got married 4 years ago. He was 2 years younger, which led me to spoil him at first. The following year, we had twin girls, and 3 years later, another daughter. His return home began to get extremely late around the time our last child was born. I hope the third one is a boy. I've always dreamed of playing catch with him. He was excited during the pregnancy, but his attitude soured as soon as he found out it was another girl. At the hospital, he grimaced upon seeing our newborn daughter. "She doesn't look like me. She's not cute." Intense anger welled up inside me. How can you say your own child isn't cute? Maybe he was already considering divorce by then, even after I came home from the hospital. His sulkiness continued. He barely helped with childcare. Show a little interest in the kids. If you're short on hands, hire a babysitter or something. You've got savings from your job. I worked at a top-tier company, earning significantly more than most women my age. On the other hand, my husband struggled to keep a job, often quitting before I even noticed. Perhaps he was envious that I was more successful at work. At the time, he was also doing temporary work, unsure of how long it would last. I didn't expect any financial support from him, but I wished he'd at least fulfill his role as a father. Spend some time with the kids at night, at least. What a hassle. When I asked him to help, he did it reluctantly and so poorly that the girls were bored. He realized they weren't warming up to him, which he didn't like, leading to a terrible cycle. Eventually, he stopped helping with the kids altogether. "I'm tired from work. Let me rest on the weekends," he said. On weekends, he either stayed in his room or went out with someone. "I have to work this holiday. If you don't watch the kids, I have plans too. See you." My husband left without listening to me. I couldn't leave the children alone, so I often had to find a babysitter at the last minute. If this continued, it would surely destroy our marriage and harm our children. Thinking this, I decided to talk to my in-laws the next day. That's just how husbands are. A wife needs to be patient. More importantly, could you do that thing we talked about last time? My visit to my in-laws ended with them ignoring my concerns and asking for favors. My parents live far away, so it's hard to visit them. I feel guilty even calling, not knowing who to turn to. "Hey, make dinner." When I returned home in the evening, I was greeted by my husband in pajamas and a messy house. The kids, bored with their toys, instantly smiled upon seeing me. "Where have you been all this time?" "I had to stop by the in-laws for a bit." "Hurry up and make dinner. I'm starving." "If you've been home all day, couldn't you do some laundry or clean the bath?" Hearing this, my husband snorted in amusement. I decided not to do anything for someone who doesn't show gratitude. "What do you mean? I cleaned the bath yesterday, and you didn't thank me." "Didn't I say thank you?" "Not that. I mean, like, at least $100. He stretched out his hand, gesturing for money. What is he talking about? I must have looked distant, tired, and irritated. I pulled him aside to the bathroom so the kids wouldn't hear and retorted, "I am working, doing the chores, raising the kids, everything, and you have never thanked me. That's a wife's job." "Then what's your job?" "I work too." He barely earns $1,000 a month and does nothing around the house. Our argument lasted about an hour until, "Mommy, I'm hungry." My daughter's call snapped me out of it. My husband left in a huff, but I ignored him and rushed to prepare dinner. During these tense days, I discovered something: my husband is cheating. I confided in a college colleague who had divorced due to her husband's affairs, and she advised me to gather evidence immediately. To tell the truth, I had noticed my husband's affair some time ago. Just before our youngest was born, I noticed a sweet fragrance on him, like perfume. When I casually asked him about it just after he got home, he broke into a sweat and started stuttering. In addition to that, he was coming home very late, talking less and less, and his attitude towards the children was changing. There were many signs, including the disappearance of intimacy, but what really convinced me was a certain event. There was a lipstick in the pocket of your jacket. It's mine. My lips get chapped. You're using Chanel's pink lipstick? Maybe it's my mom's. His evasive answer sounded like a lie. Then, as he hurriedly said, I need a bath, and stripped off his dress shirt on the way to the bathroom, I saw it. What is that? I sighed. It was clearly a hickey in a place usually covered by clothes. I was about to confront him but immediately thought better of it and decided to gather evidence first. Take your time warming up, I smiled sweetly, pretending I hadn't seen anything. The next day, I came home late from overtime. My daughters were already asleep, and the room was wrecked in silence. We need to talk. Only the dining room light was on, and there he stood, holding a piece of paper. I can't take this anymore. Let's get a divorce. What? Just file for divorce. I don't want the kids. Without waiting for my response, he handed me the divorce papers and left. Mommy. The sound of the door closing woke up the twins, who looked at me worriedly. It's okay. Sorry for waking you. Though I told my daughters it was okay, it clearly wasn't. He's reached his limit? That's my line. And what does he mean he doesn't want the kids? Mixed emotions swirled in my head, and I hadn't even noticed the tears streaming down my face. Mommy, we love you. Sensing something, the girls hugged me tightly. At that moment, I came to my senses. I can't go on like this. I can't worry these little girls. I realized that as long as I have my children, I'm happy, and this is what I should have done from the start. Well, I'll just file it. When I said this with a determined look on my face, my daughters smiled, and we all slept soundly that night. The next day, I filed the divorce papers first thing in the morning and called a certain person. Yes, please go ahead with it. It's my husband who will have trouble. The person on the phone listened to my story and took action. This was something I had considered before. If my husband betrayed me, I would end everything we had been doing. If that ruins his life, it's none of my business. 3 days later. Iris, where have you been? Waiting for me as I returned from work were my in-laws and my husband. My mother-in-law was furious, my father-in-law pale, and my husband seemed clueless, dragged along without understanding the situation. Have you been waiting at the front door all this time? That's kind of creepy. This is no time for that. What is this? My mother-in-law thrust a letter at me. It's a notice from a lawyer. I can see that much. Her face was tomato red as she raised her voice. I need to pick up my daughters, so excuse me. Ignoring them, I went inside, but my furious in-laws followed me into the living room, insisting on a discussion. Why would you suddenly send this? I don't understand. You would understand if you read the letter, wouldn't you? Using a lawyer, how cowardly. Despite being in the wrong, my MIL's outrage was something else, mixed with irritation and confusion. I was constantly thinking about how to convey my feelings. Then my husband, who seemed to understand nothing, finally spoke up. Are you upset because I divorced you? Filing some kind of complaint? My in-laws looked at him, dumbfounded. Of course, he had no idea what I had done for them all this time. Hey, I didn't hear about any divorce. Is that why this is happening? Such a useless son. What are you two so anxious for? You've ruined everything. Wait, what are we even talking about? As the conversation between them went nowhere, I watched coldly as my MIL slammed the table. Why did you divorce Iris? Well, my husband clammed up when things got uncomfortable. Since the conversation wasn't going anywhere, I decided to answer for him. He completely failed to fulfill his duties as a husband and father. There you go again. I told you that's just how men are, right? So you would forgive your husband if he had an affair? What? My MIL froze, clearly not expecting to hear that her son had been unfaithful. My husband tried to interject, but a sharp glare from me shut him up. Then, oddly, my FIL started defending his son. A man's affair is just a fling. It's not a problem. This is pointless. Please leave. All further communication will need to go through my lawyer. So what are you talking to a lawyer for now? You're agreeing to the divorce, right? My husband was confused, clueless about what was going on. Agreeing? I filed for divorce straight away. Then what is all this about? While arguing with my husband, my MIL suddenly started crying loudly. Paying $56,000 in one lump sum is impossible. What large sum? What are you talking about? Who's paying whom? Finally, the moment had come, time for my husband to regret. I proudly revealed what I had kept hidden until now. It was right after we got married 4 years ago. I was called to my in-laws' house alone, where my MIL said she had a serious matter to discuss. Nervous just because she was his mother, I was prepared to help however I could, but the words that came out of her mouth were shocking. "I need $60,000, she said out of the blue, leaving me utterly confused. As I hesitated, she bluntly asked about my salary. Unable to withstand her pressure, I admitted it was over $100,000, and her eyes lit up. Apparently, my FIL had gotten into horse racing, losing big amounts without ever winning, and had even accumulated debt. Desperate for $60,000 to cover his debts, she pleaded with me, and I couldn't say no, repeatedly insisting she would pay me back. 4 years passed, and all I got back was just $4,000. There were times when she repaid some only to borrow again. If I don't do something, I will never be able to collect the full amount. So I hired a lawyer and filed a lump sum claim for the remaining $56,000 in full. My husband's jaw dropped when he heard this, and I almost laughed. But we said we'd pay back little by little. Why suddenly in full? We're no longer family, so I thought I shouldn't hold back. Then my MIL, with a screech like a monkey, turned her fury towards my husband. "It's your fault for cheating, so you should be the one to pay it back." Huh? Why should I? We're not working anymore, and our pension won't cover it. If you want me to live in your parents' house, you'll do what I say. There was no way he could pay back $56,000 in one lump sum, especially since he was unemployed again at the time. "I'll live at Kate's place, so I won't pay. That's the name of your affair partner." As I grew increasingly absurd listening to this family quarrel, I decided it was time to deliver the final blow. Don't think it ends with $56,000. I'm demanding $20,000 each from you and your affair partner as compensation, plus child support, of course. What? It's only fair, leaving your children to play around? Where's the proof I cheated? Had he forgotten so quickly about loudly declaring he'd live with Kate? Sighing, I handed him a pile of photos I had prepared for this moment. Looking at these made me sick. The photos were from his social media, showing him kissing and embracing his affair partner. Definitely a no-no, as confirmed by my lawyer. Why do you have these? A quick online search brought up your social media. It's amazing you thought it wouldn't be found. My naive husband had kept posting cheerful photos in a public setting. He probably continued to use social networking sites without knowing how horrible they were. I was surprised that he was doing this, being mechanically inept, but it made it easy for me to gather evidence of his cheating. Even my in-laws were dumbfounded, gaping at him. "Please leave now. It's time to go to daycare. At least don't demand compensation from Kate. What if she runs away?" That's not my problem. With no resolution in sight, I forcefully kicked the family out. "Open this. Help me. I didn't know about the debt." I could hear my husband yelling through the door for a while. "I'm calling the police," I yelled, and the three of them shrugged and left. A year has passed since then. After paying me the compensation, the affair partner disappeared. Because of this, my ex-husband had to live at his parents' home, where they incessantly demanded he cover the $56,000. He ended up borrowing from shady lenders. While he managed to pay that off quickly, he still owes $20,000 in compensation for the affair and $500 a month in child support. Now he earns his daily wage by doing manual labor from morning to night. The interest on his debt is ballooning, and it might be impossible for him to pay it off in his lifetime. But that's none of my business. "Mommy, we're going to be late." Oops, my daughters are calling me to daycare. They're growing up so healthy and strong. That's all the